two Israeli embassy staffers gunned down as they left the Jewish Museum in Washington Wednesday evening. The FBI now investigating. The suspect, a 30-year-old man from Chicago, according to witnesses, yelled, "Free Palestine," while being arrested. He just made his first appearance in court late this afternoon. The victims have been identified as friends and colleagues who were just days away from becoming engaged.
But our Jewish community must feel safe. What we saw last night was disgusting. The hate has got to stop, and it has to stop now. And this person will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Guess who is coming to dinner? President Trump hosts a private dinner tonight here in the D.C. area for buyers of his meme coin. The self-declared top holder of Trump's coin is a Chinese billionaire, the president's latest money-making venture, and why it's raising significant ethical questions. The House delivers President Trump a narrow and significant win on his budget bill. This after an overnight marathon legislative session there on the House floor. The bill was approved by the narrowest of margins, 215 to 214. It does have a long way to go, but this was a significant victory for the White House and House Republicans. The next stop, of course, the Senate, where Republicans there have their own plans. Stay tuned. The bill in its current form increases military spending. It orders cuts to Medicaid and food stamps that will likely make the poorest Americans poorer. And it's projected to add trillions to the deficit. I want to start tonight with CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd, Department of Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane. Scott, tell us about the victims and what we know about the actual crime itself.
Let's start with the crime, because a press conference that we were watching earlier is revealing a few things. There are 5 felony charges now filed against Elias Rodriguez, including the rarely charged murder of foreign officials. A couple of these charges could lead to a death penalty case, and you just heard the U.S. attorney say she is likely to add more charges when this goes to a grand jury. So it doesn't stop here, it kind of starts here. This happened after 9 p.m. last night. It's worth underscoring the where. Not only was it outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, where an event was being held, a business event, the location of which was not publicized, but it happened about 15, 20 feet from the FBI's Washington, D.C. field office, a building that is presumably blanketed with cameras and around which there are at least a couple marked officers, FBI police. And it's also down the street from the D.C. police headquarters, the U.S. Department of Justice headquarters, the courthouse where this proceeding is underway right now. And if you crane your neck, you can see the U.S. Capitol. There may have been an expectation of safety in that area that was confounded.
Sam, how do you evaluate what transpired last night and describe for the audience the level of generalized threat that Israeli and Jewish facilities are experiencing, not just here, but worldwide?
Well, anti-Semitism has persisted since the Jewish people came into existence, and anti-Israel violence has existed since the creation of the State of Israel. What changed after October 7th, Hamas's terrorist attack against Israel, and then Israel's subsequent invasion of Gaza, was that bad actors of all kinds had just another motivating factor to unleash violence against Jews, against Israelis, and against people believed to be associated with the State of Israel. We saw a dramatic increase in threats against the Jewish community and individuals and entities associated with the State of Israel after October 7th. Federal, state, and local officials tried to enhance physical security resources, intelligence collection, and more. But as Scott just said, despite being in our nation's capital with such a significant law enforcement presence, a lone wolf actor was able to perpetuate a brutal crime. And Major, that is because a lone wolf actor is a counterterrorism official's worst nightmare. They operate alone, they're hard to detect, and even meters from an FBI office building, it's virtually impossible to understand that they're about to conduct an attack and to prevent it from happening.
And Scott, it's my impression that the assailant, now charged, didn't do very much to conceal himself after the fact.
He did the opposite. According to the charging documents just released and reviewed by CBS News, he proclaimed himself the shooter when police were questioning him, or at least near him, in fact, unsolicited. He said he did it for Gaza. He did it for the Palestinians. That notwithstanding, you're talking about an area that is saturated by cameras, by images, and no doubt there's a lot of those. There was an FBI search of his apartment in Chicago. The 31-year-old had an apartment there. He worked for a medical association. We just learned from the news conference that he was here for a conference, which is common in Washington, D.C. this time of year, that he was here for business. And somehow, some way, ended up outside this museum as people were coming and going.
And Sam, Scott indicated a moment ago that this event was not publicized. Would it be fair to assume, and I underscore the word assume, which is always dangerous in these situations, but the assailant, now charged, was just looking for an opportunity and opportunistically came upon something in which two victims were found, maybe accidentally, maybe without his foreknowledge?
It's entirely possible, and that's what the investigation will unveil. We heard during the press conference officials asking for help from the public. This individual had a firearm on his person. I'm not certain when he got access to that firearm and whether he was planning some kind of attack against a Jewish institution, an Israeli embassy or Israeli ambassador's residence prior to coming, and that's what the FBI will be trying to figure out. Right now, however, authorities are trying to affirm that there's no ongoing threat to the public. We've been told that there is none, and importantly, that this doesn't inspire copycat attacks. When I used to run responses to incidents like this, we knew that these individuals' acts would be glorified online and elsewhere. And right now, authorities want to make sure that others aren't inspired to act in a similar way to the assailant based upon the media coverage of this incident and the motivating factors behind it.
Because that has happened in other instances of mass violence committed against Jewish people. Tree of Life,
yes,
San Diego, other places. Immediately thereafter, there was amplification and, in some quarters, dark quarters of the web, celebration of these acts of wanton violence.
Indeed, and that's why the FBI, DHS, and others, consistent with their authorities, will be monitoring online chat rooms, social media accounts to see if there's any concerning language or behavior, any leads that develop related to any copycat attacks, while concurrently doing everything possible to enhance the security posture at Jewish institutions and at entities perceived to be or actually associated with the state of Israel. So it's the intel piece and the law enforcement posture.
And Scott, any sense that we have, and I know this is developing, as so many things are, any new security protocols downtown, this area generally?
Washington, D.C. and the suburbs both have ratcheted up security of locations where people of Jewish faith will be. I suspect other cities, other communities will do the same. Let me just take this opportunity to reference the victims. Yaron Lashinsky had an engagement ring he was about to give to the other victim, his girlfriend, Sarah Milgram. According to the Israeli foreign minister, he was going to give it to her next week during a visit to the Holy Land. Friends describe them both as young peacemakers, people who were working at the embassy to try to stop the type of violence that killed them last night. It's a painful type of irony.
Story that is draped in tragedy on so many different levels. Scott MacFarlane, Sam Vinograd, thank you. We're going to head to the White House now, where we find our Nancy Cordes. Nancy, President Trump on social media weighed in on all this?
He did. In fact, he posted about it shortly after the shooting took place, Major, saying that anti-Semitic violence has to end. He expressed his condolences to the families of the victims. And we anticipated that perhaps he might have something to say today here at the White House. He did not, but his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, did tell reporters today that the individual who has been arrested will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Nancy, talking about this meme coin, this crypto dinner tonight, 220 invited guests at the president's golf club here in Northern Virginia. What do we know about the guest list? What do we hear from those who look at this somewhat aghast?
Here's what we know about the guest list, Major. We know that in order to get on it, people had to be among the top purchasers of the Trump coin. We are talking about millions, if not tens of millions of dollars spent on the coin that was created by the president and his family and other backers just a few days before he took office for his second term. The top 220 buyers are invited tonight. There was even a leaderboard that was posted so that if buyers wanted to get into this dinner and they weren't quite on the list, they could buy a little bit more. What we don't know, Major, is the identity of most of these individuals, because you are allowed to purchase these kinds of meme tokens or cryptocurrency anonymously. There have been analysts who have looked at the information that is available and concluded that a lot of the people who are on this list appear to be foreign buyers. So these are not necessarily U.S. citizens. They may be foreign-born living here in the U.S., or perhaps they don't live in the U.S. We would like to know more, but their identities are shielded. And when we asked the White House today if they would be providing a list of attendees, they said they would not be, because this is something that the president is doing on his personal time as part of his personal business.
Nancy, some view this as a possible pathway to persuasion, meaning you invest, you buy the Trump meme coin, and you have access that others otherwise might not. Possible pathway to persuasion is one way of phrasing it. Elizabeth Warren, Democratic Senator from Massachusetts, phrased it differently. Let's listen.
Donald Trump's dinner is an orgy of corruption. Donald Trump is using the presidency of the United States to make himself richer through crypto. And he's doing it right out there in plain sight.
Nancy, White House reaction to that line of criticism?
Yes, the White House press secretary was asked about this today. I asked her about it. Others asked her about it. The fact that unlike a campaign donation, for example, from a wealthy individual or a business that wants to curry favor with a particular politician, perhaps wants to get in the room with that politician, in this case, these are purchases that are directly benefiting the president and his family members, going directly into their pockets. The White House press secretary insisted that this is a president who was a successful businessman before he ever took office, and that he is always scrupulous about paying attention to conflict of interest laws. But here, take a listen to her in her own words.
The American public believe it's absurd for anyone to insinuate that this president is profiting off of the presidency. This president was incredibly successful before giving it all up to serve our country publicly. And not only has he lost wealth, but he also almost lost his life.
What we do know, Major, is that so far since this coin was created, the family has made about $300 million from transaction fees alone.
Nancy Cordes, North Line of the White House. Thanks so much.